The twin suns burned high over the arena of blood. Thousands of alien spectators filled the giant stadium, shouting, growling, and banging metal cups. Flags waved, drums echoed, and the ground shook with the roar of the crowd in the royal balcony. Princess Velzari sat with a proud smile on her sharp blue face. Her golden armor gleamed, and her long hair was braided with glowing crystals. Beside her stood her champion, a 12-foot-tall alien warrior named Gracker the Crusher. He had never lost a match. His arms were thick as tree trunks, and his axe could slice through stone. Across the arena, a metal gate opened. Out stepped a human. The crowd fell silent for a moment, then laughed. The human was short, barely over 6 feet. He wore no armor, only black pants and a simple shirt. No helmet, no weapon. Velzari raised an eyebrow. "Is this a joke?" she said, smirking. "Did they send us a farmer?" Her maids giggled behind her. One whispered, "Maybe he's just here to beg for mercy." The announcer's voice boomed across the arena. Champion Gracker versus the outsider, the human. One fight. No rules. Only death decides the end. The drums began again. Gracker stepped forward, swinging his axe and roaring. He slammed it into the dirt, and the ground cracked. He pointed at the human. "I will break you," he growled. The human said nothing. He just stood there calm, his eyes locked on Gracker. Velzari leaned forward. "Let's make this interesting," she said loudly. "If the human wins, which he won't, then by the law of the arena, we belong to him, all of us." She laughed. Her voice echoed across the stone walls. The crowd cheered wildly. Knowing such a thing was impossible, the drums stopped. Gracker charged like a beast. The human didn't move. Not yet. Gracker raised his axe high. The shadow of it covered the humans. Small form, and then lightning fast, the human moved. He dodged left, then right, ducking under the axe. Dust flew as the weapon smashed the earth. In the same moment, the human reached behind his back and pulled out a long black blade. No one had seen it before. It had no shine, no glow. Just cold metal. Deadly and silent. Gracker turned to swing again, but it was already too late. With one smooth motion, the human dashed forward and sliced upward. A horrible sound filled the air. Like metal tearing mixed with wet flesh. Gracker stood frozen. Then, slowly, his body slid apart, top half falling. One way, bottom the other. The champion was split in half. Blood sprayed across the sand. The crowd gasped in silence. Velzari's eyes widened in disbelief. Her mouth hung open. Her champion, her strongest warrior, was destroyed in seconds. The human stood in the middle of the arena. Not even breathing hard, he looked up. Directly at the royal balcony. At her, Velzari swallowed hard. For the first time in her life, she felt something strange in her chest. Fear. The law was clear. Spoken before the gods. If she made a vow in public, it was binding. She had said it herself. If he wins, we belong to him. Now the crowd turned to look at her. Whispers filled the air. Her maids backed away in horror. One of them cried softly. Velzari stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. "No, this can't be real," she whispered. "He's just a human." The human didn't speak. He didn't celebrate. He just walked toward the exit gate. He didn't need cheers. He had already won. In the quiet chambers beneath the arena, the maids gathered in panic. "What do we do now?" One asked, trembling. "He will take us," another said. "All of us. By law, we are his concubines now. But he's a human." The youngest cried, "What does he want with us?" No one had answers. No one knew what the human would do next, but all of them had seen what he did with just one blade. One strike. And now they belonged to him. Above them, Princess Velzari stared at the bloody arena floor. Her hands shook. She wasn't just a warrior princess anymore. She was a prize. The human was the new master, She didn't sleep. Princess Valzari stood alone in her private chamber, still wearing the golden armor from the arena. Her eyes were locked on the mirror, but she wasn't looking at her reflection. She was remembering the moment. One strike, one cut. Her champion had been split like soft fruit. And the human, he didn't even smile. She clenched her fists. Alien law was cruel and unbreakable. She had spoken before the gods, in front of thousands. If he wins, we belong to him. No lies. No way out. A soft knock came at the door. One of her maids stepped in, eyes wide with fear. My princess, he waits for us. Where? Valzari asked without turning around. Bay. His ship. He gave us 1 hour. Valzari said nothing. She only nodded once. The walk to the dock felt like a slow march to death. Valzari moved with pride. Back straight, eyes forward, by her maids. Walked in silence behind her, some crying, some shaking. The guards at the royal gates didn't meet her eyes. The law was clear. She had no crown now, no command. She was his. The ship was unlike anything they had seen before. Smooth, black metal with no markings, silent, not a single symbol of war. It didn't need to show power. It had already proved it. The door opened. On its own, the human stood there, waiting. He wore the same simple clothes. No armor, no medals. Just calm eyes and a body that moved like a quiet storm. Valzari stepped forward, her voice sharp. Do you plan to chain us? The human looked at her. No. Then what do you want? He said nothing for a moment. Then quietly, he turned and walked inside. The door stayed open. Valzari stood still. Her heart pounded not from fear, but from confusion. What kind? Of master says nothing. Inside the ship, everything was strange. There were no prison cells, no cages, no guards. Each maid was shown to a private room. Beds were soft. Food was hot. Clothes were clean. No one was hurt. No one was touched. Valzari walked through the halls, tense and alert. She expected a trap, but none came. Finally, she reached a large chamber. The human stood there, staring out the window at the stars. You treat us too kindly, she said coldly. Trying to make us lower our guard? He didn't look at her. I don't want slaves. Then why claim us? You gave yourself by law, he said simply, not by my hand. His voice was calm, but full of weight. Valzari felt something twist inside her. She couldn't reply. She turned to leave, but stopped. Why didn't you kill him faster? She asked. The human finally looked at her. Mercy. That one word hit harder than a sword. That night, one of the older maids crept into the human's room. In her hand was a hidden blade. She moved quietly, trained from years of royal service. But before she could raise the weapon, I can hear your breath. The human said. She froze. I won't stop you, he added. But I won't die easy. Her hand shook. The blade dropped to the floor. I thought you'd use us, she whispered. All of us. I'm not like your kind, the human said. She ran out crying. The next morning, Princess Valzari gathered her maids in a small room. He hasn't hurt us, she said. He hasn't touched us, one maid spoke. He treats us better than our own nobles. Another nodded. He eats alone. He doesn't even speak unless we do first. Valzari felt something burning in her chest again. Not anger, shame. He has power, she whispered, but he doesn't use it like we do. For the first time, the proud alien princess began to question everything. That evening, she went to him again. I want to know your name, she said. He looked at her. Cole. She stood silently, then asked, why did you come to our world? Cole answered without pride or pain. I was sent here to die. Valzari stared at him. You defeated our strongest warrior. Why would anyone send you to die? Cole gave a small smile, because they were afraid I'd live. The stars looked different from his ship. Valzari sat by the window, wrapped in soft cloth she didn't recognize. The sky outside wasn't her home. It was endless, black and cold. But inside the ship, it was warm. Too warm. Not just the air but the silence, the peace. It was wrong. She was a royal concubine now by law, not by will. She had expected chains, collars, cold floors. Instead, she had clean clothes, a warm bed, a room of her own. The human hadn't spoken to her since yesterday. That bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Down the hall, the youngest maid named Sari was crying. "I don't understand," she whispered. "He hasn't touched anyone. What does he want from us?" Another maid replied, "Maybe he's playing with our minds. Maybe he's waiting. Waiting for what?" Sari asked. The older maid, Kura, answered in a low voice, "For us to break and give ourselves to him, freely." Sari shivered. "I'd rather he just take us. At least that would make sense." No one had an answer, because nothing about the human made sense. In the ship's control room, Cole sat alone. He watched the stars, quiet as ever. On the screen, a map showed their current path, deep into unclaimed space. No cities, no colonies. Just distance. He had taken them not as trophies, but as passengers. And they didn't know why. Velzari entered without knocking. She walked up behind him. "You stole our lives," she said. "But you don't want them." "Why?" Cole didn't turn. "Do you want them back?" Velzari hesitated. "Yes, then take them," he said. "You're free to leave." She blinked. "What?" "I didn't lock the ship. There are escape pods. Use them." Velzari clenched her fists. "You're mocking us." Now he looked at her, calm, honest. "No, I'm giving you a choice." Later that night, two maids stood by the escape pod doors. Sari stared at the blinking control panel. "He really meant it." Kuri frowned. "Then why do I feel guilty?" Sari whispered, "Because we're starting to trust him. And that scares us more." They didn't press the button. They walked back in silence. Velzari wandered the halls. She paused near the human's training room. The door was open. Inside she saw him moving alone, in silence. No music. No machines. Just him and a metal staff. He moved like flowing water. Every step was controlled. Every breath measured. He wasn't fighting. He was meditating. She leaned on the door, arms crossed. "That won't help you if I try to kill you." Without looking, Cole replied, "You already tried. Through your maid." Velzari said nothing. He continued, "She held the blade for 3 minutes, I counted." "You could have stopped her," Velzari said. "I did," he said simply. "By not stopping her." Now she was silent. She watched him for a long time. "Why are you really doing this?" she finally asked. Cole paused, then said, "Because I want you to see who I am, before you decide who you are." The next morning, something changed. Velzari walked into the dining hall. For the first time, the maids were talking freely. Some were even smiling. They had started to wear the simple human clothes left for them. One maid was humming. "No chains, no orders, just peace." She didn't like it, because peace made her feel weak, and yet, she sat down quietly and ate the human food. Later, she stood outside Cole's room. Her fist hovered near the door. She didn't knock. Instead, she whispered to herself, "This ship is changing us." Then she walked away. Cole stood alone again, watching the stars. His reflection in the glass looked tired, but calm. He whispered, words no one else could hear. "I was sent to die. But maybe I found something worth living for." No one told her to kneel, and yet she did. In the silent garden chamber of the ship, under the soft glow of artificial starlight, the youngest maid Sari slowly dropped to her knees in front of the human. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from something deeper. Something heavier. Respect. Cole stood still, his face calm. He didn't reach for her. He didn't move. Why? He asked softly. Sari looked up, her golden eyes wet. Because I watched you. I waited for cruelty, for control, for pain. But you gave none. She placed her hand on her chest. I was trained to serve royalty, to obey, but I was never treated like a person, until now. Behind her, the other maids stood frozen. Even Princess Velzari stood at the door, stunned. Her breath caught in her throat. This was not what she expected. This was dangerous. Later that night, whispers filled the halls of the ship. She kneeled willingly. She said she chooses to serve him. Has she gone mad? Velzari sat alone in the dark, staring at her own hands. Strong, scarred, royal hands. No one kneels to a human, she thought. And yet, she did. She slammed her fist into the table. What was happening to her people? What was happening to her? Cole stood outside the training room, eyes closed. He could feel it, the shift. One had submitted, not from law, but by choice. And that changed everything. The next morning, Sari served breakfast to the crew, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She smiled. She laughed. And no one could understand why. Velzari watched in silence, her heart heavy. Kura, the oldest maid, sat beside her. She's not a slave anymore, Kura said softly. She's not free either. Velzari replied. No, Kura whispered. She's something new. The ship's warning lights flashed red. Unknown vessel detected. High speed, locking weapons. Cole was already in the control room. Fingers on the screen. Eyes sharp. It's a royal strike ship, he said. From Velzari's homeworld. Velzari entered behind him, voice cold. My father's, of course, Cole said. He's come to take you back. He'll destroy us. She warned. Cole turned to her. Only if I let him. The ship rocked as enemy fire hit the outer shields. Maids screamed. Lights flickered. But Cole didn't panic. He moved through the halls like a shadow, calm and deadly. He gave orders without shouting. The ship listened to him like a living thing. Velzari grabbed a plasma spear from the wall. I fight with you, she said. Cole looked at her. Why? Because this is my mess, she answered. He nodded once, and together they fought. Boarding pods smashed into the ship. Alien soldiers stormed in, shouting, firing. Cole moved like wind and fire. His blade danced through the air, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Velzari fought beside him, fast and fierce. But she couldn't match his precision. In just minutes, it was over. The ship fell silent again. The enemy was defeated. The last soldier fell. And Cole stood over him, blood dripping from his blade. Velzari dropped to one knee, gasping for breath. She looked up at him, this strange human, this quiet storm. And for the first time, she saw him clearly, not just strong, not just skilled. But good. She stood slowly, stepped forward. And without thinking, without fear, she placed her hand over her chest and whispered, You saved us all, even me. In the quiet garden later, Kura approached Sari. You were the first to kneel. Sari smiled gently. I wasn't the last. The first crack didn't make a sound. It was small, hidden behind her sharp eyes and proud voice. But it was there. Velzari stood in the empty corridor of the human ship, watching her reflection in the glass wall. Behind her, the stars moved slowly, quiet, cold. She didn't recognize the face staring back, not because it had changed, but because she had. Earlier that day, a strange silence had filled the ship. Not the cold silence of fear, but something new. Peace. Maids were cleaning without orders, laughing, wearing soft clothes, moving freely. No chains, no whips, no shouting. Velzari hated how much it bothered her, not because it was wrong, but because it felt better than how she had ruled. Kura, the oldest maid, approached her with a cup of warm tea. You've barely eaten, Kura said softly. I'm not hungry, Velzari replied without looking at her. Your body lies, the older woman said with a gentle smile, but your heart tells the truth. Velzari's voice sharpened. I am still a princess. No, Cora said. You were a princess. But now, you're becoming something else. Something freer. Velzari wanted to yell, to throw the cup, instead. She said nothing, because the words stung with truth. Later, in the engine room, she found Sari singing an alien maid. Singing like she was happy, Velzari crossed her arms. He hasn't even claimed you, and you serve him like he's your king. Sari smiled. He didn't take anything from me. That's why I gave him everything. Velzari turned too. Leave, but Sari added softly, you're afraid because he broke your body's law. Without ever touching your body. The words struck deep. That night, Velzari found herself outside Cole's door. She didn't knock. She just stood there. Her fingers curled into a fist. She could feel her wall cracking. Again another silent break in the armor she wore for so long. She whispered to herself, I hate how kind he is. Then turned and walked away. The next day, she sat in the garden chamber. She stared at the strange flowers growing in the corners, all grown by the human's machine. Soft petals. No weapons. No pain, and yet she felt unsafe, because this quiet world was winning against the one she came from. Cole entered the chamber without warning. She didn't stand, he didn't speak. They sat in silence for a long time. Then, finally Velzari said, You confuse me. Cole looked at her. Why? Because you won. But you don't act like a winner. Cole replied, Maybe I didn't want to win. Maybe I just wanted to survive. She stared at him. Then why keep us here? He turned to her. Because none of you were safe back home. I didn't want property. I wanted peace. Velzari looked down at her hands. The fingers. That once gave orders. That once held power. What if we don't know how to live in peace? She asked softly. Cole answered. Then I'll wait. Until you learn. Later, Velzari entered her room and sat on the floor. She slowly removed the crystal pins from them. Her hair, one by one. Each pin was a symbol of her station. Her power. She placed them gently on the table. Then, for the first time in her life, she cried. Not loud. Not long. Just enough to feel her walls break. Completely. In the hallway, Sari passed Cole quietly. He doesn't know what's happening to her, she thought. But it's working. She smiled to herself. Because sometimes, the strongest change comes not from a weapon, but from kindness. The door opened. But no one came to take them. No orders. No guards. Only silence, and a message blinking on the wall screen. You are free to leave. Velzari stared at the words, confused. What is this? She whispered. Her maids gathered behind her, reading the same message over her shoulder. Whispers filled the air. No tricks? Is it real? Does he want to hunt us for sport? But no one laughed. Not even the youngest, because everyone knew. Cole didn't play games. They found him in the docking bay alone, standing beside an open door that led to a small shuttle. Coordinates are set for a neutral planet, he said, not facing them. No one will follow you there. You'll be safe. Velzari narrowed her eyes. Why are you doing this? Cole finally turned to face her. Because I promised to show you who I am. Not make you mine. You already own us, one of the maids said softly. Cole shook his head. No, you gave yourselves by law. But now, I return that choice to you. He stepped back, away from the door. No tricks, no tracking. Leave or stay. I will not stop you. No one moved. The hallway felt like it was holding its breath. Velzari stared at the ship's floor. Her heart pounding. This was her moment. Freedom. The key. One thing she thought she lost forever. Now it stood in front of her. Waiting. So why did it feel like a sword in her chest? The oldest maid, Cora, stepped forward. She looked into Cole's eyes. I served 3 kings, she said softly. All powerful, all cruel. They never gave me a choice. She turned and walked away from the open door. I choose to stay. Gasps filled the room. One by one, the other maids looked at each other. Sari wiped her eyes. He could have taken everything, but he gave it back. She smiled and followed Cora. 2 more maids stepped away from the door. Then another dot, until only Velzari remained. She stood still, her royal blood screaming inside her head. Don't bow. Don't submit. Don't fall. But her heart whispered something. Else, you were never this free. Not even as a princess. Finally, she looked at Cole. You gave me my life back, she said. He nodded once. She stepped closer, but didn't kneel. Instead, she placed her palm gently over his chest, right where his heart beat. I don't want to leave, she whispered. Not because I'm yours, but because I want to be. That night, the shuttle door closed on its own. No one left, and for the first time, the halls of the ship felt like home. No chains. No fear. Only choice. In the quiet garden room, Sari lit a small lantern and placed it in the center of the floor. What's that for? Cora asked. Sari smiled. For the moment we were set free, and chose something better. Cole sat alone in the control room, looking at the stars again. But this time, he wasn't watching them out of loneliness. This time, he was waiting for the final wall to fall. And for what might come after. She had never touched a man's hand without fear until tonight. Velzari stood in the soft glow of the ship's garden, her fingers slowly brushing against Cole's. He didn't pull away. He didn't pull her closer either. He only waited quiet and still, the way only a strong man waits for something, not out of need, but respect. For the first time in her royal life, she was not claimed, ordered, or forced. She was choosing, and this time, her choice meant something. Earlier that day, the ship felt different. There were no more whispers of escape. No fear behind eyes. The maids walked with smiles. Some laughed. Others worked side by side in the kitchen or helped repair small systems in the ship. They weren't concubines anymore. They weren't property. They were people with a home and a future they could shape themselves. Sari ran into the control room with a bundle of cloth. Captain Cole, she said cheerfully. He turned. What is it? She unwrapped it like a precious treasure. Inside was a small, handmade flag stitch from old fabrics, torn uniforms, and royal silks. At its center was a symbol, a human hand and an alien hand, reaching for each other. Sari smiled. We made it for you, for all of us. Cole looked at it silently for a moment, then nodded. Hang it in the garden. She nodded and skipped away, humming a tune from her homeworld. That evening, Velzari approached the human one last time, but not in armor. Not with guards, not with pride, just herself barefoot. Soft robes, no crown. I used to believe strength was about control, she said quietly. Cole looked up from the garden seat. And now? She sat beside him. Now I think real strength is letting others choose. He waited. And then she whispered, I choose you. She reached for his hand. And he accepted. Later that night, the maids gathered in the garden room. Lanterns glowed gently in the corners. Flowers bloomed across the ceiling. The flag fluttered in the recycled air. One by one, the women lit small candles and placed them in a circle. Not for worship. Not for submission, but for a beginning. Zari stood in the center and looked around. I once stood above all of you, she said softly. But he showed me how to walk beside you. Then she looked at Cole. And I stand with him now, not as his concubine by law, but as his equal, as his chosen. The maids clapped softly. Sari cried again, but this time with joy. In the days that followed, the ship no longer felt like a prison or a battlefield. It became something new, a floating home, A strange family, and Cole the human sent to die became something more than anyone expected. Not a master, not a king, just a man strong enough to win hearts without ever having to steal them. Final scene. Cole and Velzari stood together, looking out the ship's window. Below them, a blue planet came into view, lush, peaceful, untouched, their new beginning. Cole smiled slightly. What now? Velzari squeezed his hand. Now we build. Not an empire but a future.